There's no doubt in my mind that Neo is the best living villain in RWBY, runner-up to Salem. Neo checks off a lot of boxes when it comes to making a good character, and more importantly, making a good RWBY character. Neo wins when it comes to appearance, weapon, fighting style, semblance, and personality, which may be surprising to non-RWBY fans. How can a character who hasn't spoken at all have so much personality? Neo's personality is conveyed through the factors I already mentioned, as well as body language and facial expression. But if you've watched other villain analysis videos, you may have noticed that I don't make a video unless there is a problem with a villain. So how can Neo as a character and as a villain be even better than she already is? Hello everybody, it is Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe, become patrons over on Patreon to support the channel, and follow me over on social media. So today we are talking about Neo, and I am excited because I have been trying to finish these videos for a little while now. I have had some trouble with the last couple. They've been rewritten 3 or 4 times and re-recorded 3 or 4 times. It's more of a me thing than the actual videos, don't let that scare you. But Volume 7 is coming fast, and because I've already done all that work, I just wanted to put my ideas on Neo out there, even if this video isn't like a Neo encyclopedia, and I'm excited with the ideas that I have sort of developed for you guys. When we've talked about villains, I've had my own checklist for what makes a good villain, and recently Neo has hit the marks with her Volume 6 reintroduction. Neo has always been good at pressuring other characters into making choices, like when she forces Raven to make herself seen and save Yang, or how RWBY acts when she's fighting Neo and Roman on the airship. She's good at attacking other characters in this way. We didn't really know what her motivations were before, other than in hindsight they seemed to surround Roman and protecting Roman, and though we didn't have as much backstory on her until recently, both her motivations and her purpose now are solid. They've given her something different compared to other RWBY villains. Her story focuses on avenging or getting revenge for Roman, and she even goes after Cinder, putting her in a very interesting place. As I've previously discussed, villains are sometimes at their most interesting when they are trying to achieve the same goal as a hero. This is also something that is frequent within fairy tales and myths, which RWBY takes inspiration from. Lots of Disney movies do this as well, if you guys have noticed. So how does all this tie into making Neo an even better character? Throughout this series, we've talked about character tethers, and I think Neo works best as a foil to Jean and a mirror to RWBY, whereas if you guys remember, Jean was a mirror to Cinder, but a foil to RWBY. Basically, Neo has sort of the inverted version of what Cinder had in the Cinder video, and I think that that's pretty interesting. When you think about Neo as a character, something she has in common with both RWBY and Jean is that they have all lost someone because of Cinder. RWBY has lost Pyrrha and Penny, Jean has lost Pyrrha, and Neo has lost Roman. I think Jean works as a foil to Neo. It interests me because both of them are very different, and we can see this in how they both confront Cinder about the people that they've lost. Jean generally has a more strategic sort of mind, while Neo is a powerful fighter who has a strategic edge and uses her semblance strategically. But it's interesting since Jean abandons all strategy and basically just goes for Cinder's jugular in Volume 5, while Neo could have been stalking and planning Cinder and attacking Cinder for a while before carefully making an entrance. I also think it's interesting because Neo and Jean, in a sense, both disguise themselves. Neo does this physically to get into the school, while Jean fakes his transcripts. They're both linked to each other through having Pyrrha for Jean and Roman for Neo. They both lost because of Cinder, and we know that from one thing that Roman gave Neo's life purpose and direction. He was the one thing that mattered to her in this world. I feel like in a similar way, Pyrrha did this for Jean as well. The difference between Jean and Neo is that Neo was left completely alone without Roman, while Jean had the other support systems like the rest of his team as well as Team RWBY, and more so RWBY in Volume 4. I find this to be a very interesting link. What would have happened to Jean if the rest of his team was wiped out as well, and he was all alone? Vice versa, what would have happened if Neo had a greater support system and it wasn't just Roman that was the one thing that mattered in her life? Basically, if their roles were reversed, would they fall similarly into each other's roles? We know that some discussion of Penny has to happen in Volume 7, judging by Penny's creator fixing Maria's eyes, and I think it would be interesting to see a connection between Neo and RWBY. Some people have theorized that Neo will try to seek to bring Roman back if she finds out about the relics, and the relic for Atlas is the relic of creation. Penny returning and RWBY maybe realizing that things aren't as they seem, that, she can't replace the Penny that was lost, that this Penny is not the same Penny as before would be an interesting mirror. Because if RWBY experiences something like that, she knows that even if Neo is able to make sort of a replica of Roman, it'll never actually be Roman. Not only that, but we were discussing how Neo can make illusions on Twitter, and it would be interesting if Neo changes the outside of objects to make them look like Roman, similar to how she changed the outside of the airship to make it look like an Atlas airship. She could do this with other objects like, say, pillows and things like that. There's just that sort of uncanniness of things not being quite real, and I think that would be really interesting for RWBY to explore with both Penny, and even the possibility that the Relic of Creation was involved in Penny's creation and could be involved in sort of recreating a person that is gone. I think an interesting theme for Neo to bring up to the forefront for Jean, RWBY, and Cinder is revenge. Neo clearly wants revenge for Roman and is willing to take it, but how about Jean and RWBY? We've seen Jean go after Cinder, albeit not the best way, but would Jean be willing to kill Cinder? Would RWBY be willing to kill Cinder? For all she's done, for all the people that Cinder has killed, are Jean and RWBY willing to kill Cinder? Cinder's story is also one of revenge. She wants to kill RWBY for revenge. We see in Yang and Blake's story how willing they are to kill Adam because there is no other choice, as long as Adam keeps coming after them, and I feel like Cinder is the same way. She will stop at nothing until RWBY is dead. But does that mean Jean and RWBY have enough in them to actually do it? I think it would be interesting to see these variations of feelings of revenge. With Neo being the most extreme and obviously Cinder, I think they're both kind of tied. But Neo, it sort of implies if you interpret one thing in a certain way, that she just sort of wants to kill Cinder and die. So that's interesting. And then you have sort of maybe Jean being more in the middle and maybe RWBY not wanting to kill anyone. Or maybe we'll be surprised at what Jean and RWBY's actual answers are. Regardless, in a volume that could be so focused on revenge, Neo's revenge for Roman, Watts' revenge for being disgraced, RWBY and Penny's creator's revenge for Penny, Jean's for Pyrrha, if we do see Cinder again and that gets involved. There's also Weiss going after her father if that happens in this volume. There's also a difference between revenge and avenging someone, and I feel like they could use this time to really explore that difference. But moving on, I see a lot of room to develop all the characters with some Atlas possibilities. I don't want Neo to necessarily turn good, but I think it would be interesting to see the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. That's a situation that's sort of already happening with Cinder and Neo, but let me explain. If Cinder is cornered by Team RWBY and Juniper and runs off again, it would sort of only make sense for Neo to stick with Team RWBY because they're already going after the villains anyway. It would make more sense for Neo to stay with Team RWBY because the likelihood of them encountering a villain versus Neo encountering a villain on her own is pretty slim. This is, of course, if Neo is going to betray Cinder after all. It would also be interesting to see RWBY talk Neo into going after Cinder because they have all lost because of Cinder. If Cinder somehow gets away again, Neo could join Team RWBY and Juniper on their journey without necessarily being a good guy. But I think it would be interesting for her to finally have that support system and her life could change. Like, Neo has never done anything so bad to the group except for almost killing Yang, but we can ignore that. It's all right, like, bygones be bygones, you know what I'm saying? But I think that it would be interesting for Neo to realize that she cannot beat Cinder alone. So why not let Cinder lead Neo to RWBY in the group so they can all attack Cinder? Does that make sense? Like, you're basically taking Cinder with you as you find Team RWBY, and then Uno reverse card, you all join up and attack her together. That to me makes a lot of sense. Neo being involved in Cinder's story could also help develop Cinder's character. Not just this situation, but Neo again being around in general. The difference between RWBY and Neo may be, in the end, how they treat their teammates. RWBY may be able to get Neo on her side by convincing her that everyone has lost because of Cinder and they should work together, while historically, Cinder has been sort of a dictator, or at least very authoritarian with Mercury and Emerald. She basically, slaps Emerald around in one of the other volumes for not listening to her. We know that she's very manipulative and physically forceful when she's not getting what she wants. And I don't think that's gonna particularly fly with Neo, so that'll be interesting. Cinder may expect Neo to just fall into line like Emerald did. It would also be interesting for almost the opposite to happen, where Neo is still so lost and directionless that Cinder could give her purpose like Roman did, that she basically replaces Roman with Cinder. And I'm not sure how much I like these ideas, but I think at the least it would be interesting. But the most interesting possibility is that Neo could finally get Cinder to check her ego at the door, and we see Cinder truly treat someone as an equal, because she realizes, okay, I can't treat Neo like Emerald and Mercury, because that's just not gonna work, sis, and I'm not gonna treat her like she's above me, because I need to sort of take control here. It's my plan, so we have to actually be equals, and I hope through that Neo would be able to fish her backstory out of Cinder. Seeing them together like this would be really interesting, and Neo's inclusion in the storyline can help develop all parties when it comes to their much needed development. Of course, I think the person that needs it most is definitely Cinder, but it would be interesting to see how Neo interacts with Ruby and John, especially just because they've lost, but the rest of sort of the good guys in this scenario. I think it would be interesting to see everyone have to work with Neo in some capacity, and a lot of interesting things could happen with that, though I would imagine that would be at the end of the Atlas arc and during the Vacuo arc. You know, she can fight, she's going after the villains too, we may as well all just go together. That's everything I have to say about Neo for now. There's a lot of potential in her character when it comes to developing the other characters and being a formidable opponent for both villains and good guys alike. But that is basically all I have to say for today, and because RWBY Volume 7 is coming fast, and like I mentioned before, I have already rewritten this video 3 or 4 times, I just wanted to put some of my ideas out there, even though it may not, you know, mark down every single thing that Neo could do to develop every character. I think this is still a good catalog of things that she can do, and why her inclusion in the story is really important and really interesting, depending on what they do. So yeah, that is all from me. I hope you guys enjoy. You know, let me know how you guys feel about this, all that stuff. Let me know your own ideas. What questions do you guys have? I will answer them, and I will see you guys later. Bye.
Thank you for watching, and thank you to our wonderful patrons over on Patreon who support the channel. Their names will scroll through now.